I'm Sheila Hamilton. Welcome back to Beyond Well. This is a program for people who want to learn more about their interior lives. And every week we try to add another tool to the emotional toolbox. My friends Dr. Jenna Lejeune and Dr. Brian Goff are here. Hi,
Good morning.
Nice to see you. And we're joined by Nate Botsford, an incredible singer-songwriter who I've known for about the past 5 years. Hi, Nate.
Hey, how are you guys?
I want you to just begin with the story about you handing a CD to Need to Breathe.
Yeah, so they've always been one of my favorite bands, and they were in Portland. It's probably close to a year and a half, 2 years ago now. And my manager had this crazy idea that we just go sit on the street, like by the venue, around like noon, in the hopes of seeing them maybe walk from the door to the bus, which I thought was crazy. That doesn't happen. But sure enough, they were walking out, and I just kind of stuck my hand out and said, "Nice to meet you guys. You're awesome." And then we asked if I could play them a song, to which they did not love that idea.
On the street.
On the street.
How crazy is Portland anyway, right?
Yeah. But they, for whatever reason, they agreed. Let me play the song. And they said it was super good, and we took a picture and handed them a CD, and thought that was it. And then a couple minutes later, their manager calls and wanted me to go sing it in the middle of their set that night.
I was so struck by the lyrics of that song, and also just the intention of you just saying, I want you to listen to it, and someone actually doing it, especially a band that's at that level. So would you play us the song?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Tiny Little Voices. Well, I got to thinking just the other day, what if the voices in my head would turn and run away? And all of the mistakes and the choices that I've made, and all those tiny little voices tell me I'm still the same. Well, you try to fake a smile, but there's tears behind those eyes. Oh, if people only knew what was going on inside. Sometimes I wanna run, sometimes I wanna scream, sometimes I wanna punch the mirror staring back at me. No matter what you're feeling, just know that you can tell. All those tiny little voices go to hell. Like a dream you wanna yell, but the words just don't come out. And all the people take the sidelines, wonder what it's all about. Well, who's to judge a man by the scars his life has placed, when we all have our demons that we all have to face? Sometimes I wanna run, sometimes I wanna scream, sometimes I wanna punch the mirror staring back at me. No matter what you're feeling, just know that you can tell. All those tiny little voices go to hell. No matter what you're feeling, know that you can tell. All those tiny little voices, they go to hell.
Wow. I love music for its storytelling capacity, and I know there must be a story behind that. Would you talk about the origin of that song?
Yeah. Most of my songwriting, I write what I think people want to hear, and this was one of those ones that I just kind of sat down and wrote for myself. I started it a couple years ago, and I think there's a lot of contributing factors that that went into this song. I didn't really grow up with people like really encouraging me to do music and wanting me to, succeed and do well. So I got a lot of can't do this, shouldn't do this. So as I tried to pursue music, I always had those like in my head, just those negative influences, whether it's from school or from whoever. So I kind of sat down just frustrated one day and wrote this song, and I just kind of had this thought in my head. I was like, man, those things can just go to hell, And
It's so awesome. I'm sure you guys, when you were listening to the words to that, were thinking, wow, I wish somebody would come and sit down in my office and tell me a story like this, just this beautifully, this straightforwardly to say, wow, I'm having all of this really negative looping about who I am and what it means to be human.
Yeah, I was thinking, Nate, could you just come in and play that for a therapy session for me, and then my job is done? That'd be awesome.
got it.
It's a way more eloquent way of trying to express what I'm trying to do with my clients. So that was really beautiful.
Thank you.
It's fascinating to me, the life of a singer-songwriter. You have to be so single-minded and so purposeful around what it is you're presenting to the world and so believing in yourself. But you grew up in a household where there was not a lot of encouragement or that kind of like, hey, we can do anything, right?
Yeah, and I think, so I have 7 brothers and sisters, and so there's a lot of us, and I think it's hard as any parent to see one of your kids want to like pursue something like this, and it's such a risky business, and it's so hard to break into and to like establish yourself and make a living, and so like between that and then going to school and just not having like, whether it was teachers in high school or people thinking that you're good enough, and so I always kind of just felt like there's no way I can really pursue it, and just always like moved with that in my head.
You also have noted before that in your family dynamic, there were a lot of people who were not well, not mentally well, not like spiritually well, not encouraging you to be able to be your best self. So how do you work with that dynamic today?
Yeah, I've just kind of realized how, like as I wrote this song, I kind of had like mental illness. So I grew up around mental illness, and so I knew kind of just what that entails and what it all the stuff that goes with that, and even in my own life realizing like how huge that is in music, and in how strong anxiety is these days with everyone,
right? Yeah.
And it's just such a crazy epidemic, and it allows so much like destruction to go on in our own heads. And so I had to get to the point where I realized like the one thing standing in my way is me, and the stuff that I've allowed to influence my music and me moving forward. And so learning how to kind of manage that and focus on the things that are right and that I know are true.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really curious if you ever had the moment where you could sit your parents down and actually play for them, and then they heard or saw a new version of you that perhaps they missed when you were younger.
Yeah, we've grown a ton, like in our relationship, and I think it was just out of love and out of care for me, wanting me to succeed in life, and some of it, like, it's an older mindset of, you gotta do the college thing, you gotta get a stable job and provide for a family, but they've been super supportive, and once I decided just to stick through it, I quit my day job and I just pursued music.
Wow. I want to ask you guys about this because I know, especially for a lot of young people, how important it is to have a life of meaning, to follow creative outlets, to be able to actually form a life that is personal to you rather than the expectations of someone else. And you don't get a whole lot of encouragement for it, like, yay, our son's not going to college. How do you suggest people work within the paradigms of others' expectations?
I think Nate just provided a really beautiful example of, in the ideal world, you might be able to get to the place that Nate is about being able to have a compassionate perspective of like, yeah, they were probably doing their best and they were probably, worried for you. And that may be why they tried to steer you in one direction. It wasn't real helpful, but like they were coming from their own context. So in the ideal world, you're able to kind of help people be able to take that perspective, but then also see that their life doesn't have to be kind of dictated by some of those old stories, whether those old stories are things that other people put in their heads or their own voices in their heads. Like we all get to write our own story. And it isn't the voices in our head, again, whether whoever put those in your head, that tells the story for us.
Yeah. I think that you you can sort of say, boy, I'm really glad I didn't let my vision die, because you're traveling and you're on stage and it's working. And I think there's a lot of people who would say, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to jump in with everything. I'm going to sell everything I have, and I'm going to get a VW microbus, and I'm just going to make it work. And it's like, 2 years later, they're like, I got to get a job. And I, to me, at least, I think the thing that catches my ear is the commitment to your passion and to your value, and being a full-time musician is a vehicle that advances that value. Yeah. And there are some people who aren't as fortunate or as skilled, or didn't have the right breaks, or didn't sit on the street and give their tape to the right people, or whatever. And so it looks different. Yeah. But that's still their passion. Like if I know somebody who loves a sport, but they're not skillful enough to be a professional athlete, don't give up that passion. That's life-giving. It might not translate into, you're going to be on tour in the PGA, because that happens to a very, very small percentage of people. But it might mean, you're gonna teach golf at a high school, or you're gonna play a lot, and you're gonna be on a men's club or a women's club or something like that. So to me, it helps to tease apart a little bit the values that drive the choices we make, and then those choices are vehicles that help us advance the value.
Yeah. I also really think it's important to just talk about how much healing comes from Nate actually going deep into what his background was like, how it felt to grow up without a ton of support that way, and what it means now to be able to look apart from your thoughts and say, these are separate.
Totally.
These are completely, you're doing like your own therapy and your writing process. Yeah. Does it feel that way to you?
Absolutely. Especially with this song, where I remember it very vividly. I just sat down. I think I was at church, and I just sat down on the stage and just started jotting these things down and just started singing it. And it's amazing how, for me, to write those out and then to sing them out loud and to speak that truth over my life. There's just power in that, I think. And I think not enough. It took me so long to figure that out. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much power they have in their own voice and overcoming their own self and their own thoughts.
Amen.
Do you feel like there's a well there for you in terms of when you tap into that truth, that could become your superpower in some way?
I think so.
Because that song is really super awesome.
Thank
really,
you.
It's really amazing.
I love the fact that earlier, Nate, you said, I used to write music, or I write music because I think that's what people want to hear. This one I wrote for myself, and then everyone is like, God, I love this song. And the world that Jenna and I live in, we don't really make this big distinction between people who have mental health issues and people who don't. It's really more like we all have internal worlds. Yeah. We all have stories. Some of them are helpful. Some of them are absolutely not helpful. And I don't know a person who wouldn't relate to that song.
That's awesome. Thank you.
One of the things that I'm so struck by when I see you is you're so handsome, male, young, And there is a way in which handsome young males grow up in our society, that they're supposed to be a certain way. And I can imagine that it was not really like encouraged in your family dynamic to tell us what your feelings are. I mean, it certainly didn't happen with my brothers. I'm wondering, did it happen with you?
I think I was kind of an odd case. So I was homeschooled actually for most of my life.
Wow.
And I think that kind of played a big influence. And I wrestled with like anxiety a ton as a kid. And so when I finally did go to school, I was just like mercilessly picked on. And so I didn't really grow up with this like confidence, I'm athletic, I can sing.
Interesting.
So I've never really had that approach, I guess. I've never like had that thought in my head, like I'm confident, I'm a good-looking guy. I'm athletic. I can play music.
Do you know it's so fascinating? I've probably done 200 interviews with some of the biggest stars and some stars still attempting to become stars. But with music in particular, it does not attract the captain of the football team. It doesn't attract the guy who is getting all of the girls. It tends to be an art that people find because they maybe feel a little bit different than the most popular person. And so it's so ironic when they become huge stars, because then, for instance, women are grabbing at them and they're thinking that they're everything in terms of what we value as a society, but they tend to be very sensitive, very particular in terms of their own interior, and sometimes really introverted.
Well, and even those are stories, right?
Right.
Like even you're this like handsome musician, like now you're the popular kid guy. Like, and that's a story too. And it doesn't always match your internal experience or kind of who you are. And you can tell those stories to go to hell too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not like the positive or negative part of the story
just
that's
the stories.
hard. Yeah, it's just stories.
Yeah.
It's not you.
Yeah.
It's not surprising to me about the musician, sensitive thing. It feels like you write, whether it's literature or music or whatever, or art, it comes out of a place of emotion usually. And there's this research on basic emotion that sort of what are the fundamental human emotions. If you had to reduce them to like a little crayon box of 9 crayons, what would they be? And 6 of them are unpleasant. Like we're kind of set up to not feel. I mean, there's like surprise and joy, but then you've got like disgust and shame and sadness and fear, and the list goes on. And it's like we're just hooked up to not feel great as human beings. It's totally normal. So if you're sensitive, 2/3 of the stuff that we feel as human beings isn't, hey, I got another date, I threw another touchdown, I'm a rock star.
Wow.
Damn it.
So interesting. Is that because the brain is primed to remember those and keep us out of those circumstances where we're like, oh, I feel like crap. I think it's because I'm probably going to get eaten today.
Well, the evolutionary sort of bent to that, right? Is that if you have a propensity towards anxiety, then you're not like, well, I wonder if that snake is poisonous. Let's go check that out. You're just like, shit, it's a snake. And you run. And guess what? You survive and you get to pass on your DNA. Yes.
No, I do think that like if I'm thinking about it, so much of when I feel I'm just not feeling great, I'm not feeling it. It feels like an old story, my ancestors' story of, coming over on the trail and is, not just snakes going to eat me, but is somebody else here in the wagon train going to eat me? Like, right. I feel like there's some of that in all of us as human beings, that we're carrying these stories of where we came from.
Yeah, if you think about it, like humans, if we're looking at this from an evolutionary perspective, humans are these unbelievably slow, awkward, bipedal, like squishy things. Like we should not be at the top of the food chain.
We should be prey.
We should definitely be prey.
Opposable thumbs is not that great.
Not that great. I mean, it's nice. It's nice. But I'm going to take a hard shell any day over opposable thumbs.
And big sharp teeth.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we had this ability to develop this incredible don't get eaten by the lion in the Serengeti machine that we call our brain. Yeah. And our brain looks for threats above all else. And so anxiety in many ways is sort of the way the brain is supposed to be operating. Now, fortunately, we happen to live in a world now where there aren't a whole lot of times when lions are about to eat us. But we turn those same experiences, that same brain gets turned on ourselves. And so then it's things like the stories in our head, the thoughts of, I'm never going to make it, I'm going to suck, I'm going to prove everybody right that I couldn't do this. We start turning those into these incredibly dangerous things. And you know what they're? They're thoughts.
Yeah.
They're simply thoughts. You could say, yeah, go to hell. I'm going to keep doing this thing.
Yeah.
How do you stay really well now? What are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're tending your brain?
I try to I guess every day, make mental checklists, because it's so funny how I could have an experience like that on the street with them, and be on in the clouds,
Okay.
and then the next day I could go sing at a coffee shop and not one person claps and no one listens, and that's the experience that I will let define the next day after that.
Yeah,
Totally.
totally.
And so
so common.
I've tried to every day literally go through these mental checklists of I know I'm good enough. I know I have the talent, I have the dream because of this experience, this one and this one, whatever it is. And those are the ones I need to be focusing on, that I need to be grasping and taking hold of, and letting those control my emotions as I move forward.
I also think it's so helpful to really dive into the stories of other people who have made it. I remember hearing the biography of Blake Shelton and just how completely depressed and ready to give up he was before he decided to cut his hair. And just cutting his hair somehow made some agent notice him and give him, give one of the studios a CD, and he was launched. It was one tiny decision,
Right.
but it was all those years of work, the work that you're putting in right now, Nate. Your voice is so spectacular, and your songwriting ability is so beautiful. I hope that you'll take us out with one more selection. Something from your heart, hopefully.
Yeah. Let's see.
He's like, my capo isn't ready for that, Sheila.
Let's see. This is actually a song. I wrote this song in a bar once when no one came to hear me sing. And so it was just me and the bartender, but I was contracted for 3 hours, so I had to
lots of practice time.
or in my case, songwriting time. But I wrote this song just watching people walk by the window. I was like, man, people are so sad, and so just gonna get through the day, do my thing, and no one stops to enjoy and appreciate life. So I wrote this song called Hourglass, just because that's pretty much life, and you don't get to flip the thing over and try one more time at the end. So this is a song that came out of it. You never see it coming. Seems like we were just kids. The way this life keeps moving, with all of its changes. Things used to be so simple, running around and climbing trees. Don't let another day pass you by without those kinds of memories. So live it up, and let it be. Don't worry about tomorrow. You just wait and see. So take it slow, and don't move too fast. because this life is just an hourglass, a campfire in the sand, in the moonlight lullaby. If you don't take them in now, you watch them slip into the night. You'll have your days of laughter, and you'll have some days of pain, and some beginnings bring the sunshine, and some endings bring the rain. So live it up, and let it be. Don't worry about tomorrow, just go and chase your dreams. So take it slow, and don't move too fast, because this life is just an hourglass. So take it slow, don't move too fast, because this life is just an hourglass.
I want more days when you're in the bar and nobody shows up.
I know.
It's such a beautiful song.
Wow.
Thank you.
Nate Botsford, thank you so much for coming back around.
you
So
for
good to
having
see
me.
you again.
Yeah.
Brian
Thank
and
you
Jenna,
so
thank
much.
you again.
Thank you.